Okay, we should be all set to begin.
I'm sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Riviera School Committee. Today is Tuesday, September 15th, 2020. Please raise for our pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
under God, indivisible,
liberty
with
and justice for all.
Roll call of the members.
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo,
Here.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Here.
Mr. Ferranti,
Here.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Here.
Mr. Sinella,
Here.
Ms. Ty,
Carol, you need to unmute.
Sorry, my alarm was going off.
Ms. Ty,
Here.
Mayor Arrigo.
Mayor Riga will be joining us shortly. Okay, first agenda item is public speak. Do we have any panelists that wish to speak today? I don't see anyone's hand raised. Were there any emails sent in?
There were not. I checked
Okay,
just an hour before the meeting.
okay,
Wow.
thank you. Recognition, none. Next item is the superintendent's report. Dr. Kelly.
Thank you, Mrs. Gravellisi. So we have a number of items on the superintendent's report, and I'm actually going to deliver none of them. So what we wanted to do starting this month, as we typically do in our school committee meetings, is feature some of the work that is happening around the school district. And we're going to start tonight with a presentation by the Riviera High School equity team. And I know that we have several members of that group here with us tonight. Dr. Asha Chana, Ms. Blaine Yesselman, Mr. Jason Torrey, and Dr. John Perella are going to give us a presentation to tell us a little bit more about the work that they're doing. So I'm going to promote them now to panelists so that they can share their work with us. And just a reminder to mute if you're not speaking. And Dr. Perella, is there somebody on your team I should give sharing capabilities to?
Good evening, Dr. Kelly. Yes, can you please give that to Ms. Yesselman?
Okay.
I'd like to thank you, Dr. Kelly, and esteemed members of the school committee. It's our honor to be meeting with you tonight in this forum. I would like to ask the team members to do most of the speaking tonight, but I'd first like to thank Dr. Kelly and Dr. Garcia for establishing a supportive and nurturing environment while I've been here the past 3 years and before I came here as well, that fostered discussions on bias, on restorative practice, and race and equity. And because of that foundation, we've been able to build upon that and get ourselves to a place where we feel we are ready to truly and authentically issues of equity and anti-racism in our school. I'd like to ask Ms. Yesselman to speak at this point.
Great. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all from afar. It feels really important to speak as a team member right now, so I'm not going to be doing much of the talking at all, but Asha and Jason are going to take over in a moment. For those of you I don't know, my name is Blaine Yesselman. I'm one of the assistant principals at the high school. This is my first year as an AP in Riviera and year 16 as an educator and school leader. I am really excited to be here with all of you this evening. I was certainly drawn to Riviera because of the promise of the work that we're about to talk about this evening. Equity work kind of has become such of a buzzword. But really what we're talking about is the 4 tenets, the 4 R's that Riviera has been talking about for years. I think that all of us believe that all Riviera students are amazing, that they are all capable, and that they all deserve the best education they can possibly get, and that thinking about equity, thinking about anti-racism and our practices is really an integral part of how we deliver the best possible education to students. So I'll turn things over to the awesome Asha Chana and Jason Torrey, who are going to walk through more specifically what we've been doing at the high school, and also kind of how we've been envisioning this work and starting to communicate with other schools throughout the district. We know that this is really a priority for the whole district, and so we're excited to be learning from and sharing our learning with the entire district.
Yes, so picking up from Blaine and John, thank you so much for this time and space to be able to share with you what we've been working on really for years. So I started in Riviera about 8 years ago. And while I've been in the district, I've seen this progress and growth and desire to become more holistic. So, and center students. So we've seen things at the high school like restorative justice, CBL, Nellie Mae, SEL initiatives, and now we're adding into that equity. And this is such exciting work because it really ties into the 4 R's. So I'm going to speak to rigor and resilience. In regards to rigor and how equity has been building and forming in equity or rigor for our students, by having the work that we're doing with the equity team, it's really allowing us to hold students to really high standards as citizens in the world and not just as academic learners. And it's really helping them become well-rounded students. And it's allowing for challenging, organic, and authentic conversations to come up, which connect to the growth mind aspects that were in MSTV, which was something that we introduced about 4 years ago into the district and have been moving towards centering students more and more. That also ties in the resilience piece that we've been working with with students. So we've been allowing for more organic conversations with our kids, problem solving, allowing students to work on interpersonal skills and intrapersonal skills to be successful in 2020. And this equity work just builds on top of that because now we're all coming into using common language, having common practices, and really tying everything together that we have been working towards because this is inclusive work. We're calling everyone in to make this community even better and stronger and continuing on this trajectory where we also just found, based on the results from a microaggressions training, that 96 out of 99 teachers are fully on board and love that we are making these strides for our kiddos. So I know, Jason, you have the other 2 R's.
Yes, I do. I want to thank everybody on the committee for allowing us this time. And I want to take this time to thank my teammates as well. So my name is Jason Torrey. For those of you all who have not met me in person, this is the beginning of my 2nd year being in the Riviera Public Schools. And it's been a great privilege and pleasure so far. I'm also one of your neighbors as a Riviera resident, and that matters to me very importantly and very greatly because this is work that we're doing in terms of the 2 R's I'm going to talk about, which are relevance and relationships. So with relevance, I think that it goes to speak, not only has this work been done over the course of the last 5 years, but also we've seen that our students have spoken up about a number of issues that they are concerned about. And so it makes it exceptionally relevant about what we're talking about. And to that end, relationships are really the fundamental core principle that every educator, every member of the school committee, every member in public service in Riviera is talking about. These are about relationships. And that's what we know. It's not always about what you know. It is about who you know and how that can affect change moving forward. And so these relationships we are building with our students not only within the schoolhouse walls or within the quadrant of YouTube and Zoom, but also outside of school and outside of what we're talking about in terms of content and all of the things that we worked on, not only this past summer and years previous, but moving forward will allow us to address issues that our students want to learn about and care about moving forward.
So I'll kick off this session or this section. We're only going to talk for 1 or 2 more minutes, but I did just feel, and we felt it was important to name some of the specific things that we've been doing. So last year at the high school, we did initiate an equity team. So much like an instructional leadership team, the goal of the equity team is really to highlight and lift up issues pertaining to equity and inequities that our students and staff have named as things we needed to be thinking about. So that pertains to everything from an equity audit for our curriculum and thinking about the materials that we are using and whether they are reflective of our student body, to really honing in on our pedagogical practice and thinking about the students that we have in front of us. Our world is changing rapidly, as we know, and young people change very quickly. They are highly adaptive. And so our practice must be too. And so the kind of ongoing work of visiting classrooms or Zoom rooms at this point, and working with teachers to hone our craft is essential. Asha, do you want to speak a bit to the work of the equity team from this summer before we close out?
Okay, so during the summer, we would meet every 2 weeks, and we would look at best practices from other schools who were incorporating different equity programs. We would then take that information, look at Riviere's demographics, look at what students have said to us. We would meet as groups of teachers, and we would break down what we had heard from students, what was going on in other schools, and we would tailor it to see and create a program that we really, really felt and feel is going to help move our students forward to have discussions and to know more about themselves and what it means to go into the 21st century or 2020. So we had these meetings. We plan to continue them moving forward. We also talked about action steps that we would like to incorporate this year into Riviera High School.
So some of those pieces are introducing a mapped out PD plan for staff tied to issues of equity and anti-racism specifically this year, coming back in the midst of this ongoing pandemic. And as Dr. Kelly noted in her opening speech, the kind of dual pandemics of COVID-19 and racism, it does feel essential to hone in on racism as a key issue here. We also want to make sure that we are creating safe spaces for students and for staff to be processing social emotional issues, mental health issues. And John, I think, also has a bit of information just more specifically about the equity audit piece. Do you want to speak to that, John?
Yep, thank you. I'll conclude with a few closing thoughts here. So the equity team is really a reflection of our focus at the high school and at the district for equity work. It is one of our systems in place that is being used to address it. It's by no avenue that we are addressing equity issues. And one of the topics that we are going to investigate this year, which is pertinent to the school committee, is an examination and audit of our student handbook with a lens of equity. And that is something that we're going to be working on over the school year. And we are excited, looking forward to presenting it to the school committee and to the superintendent, of course, sometime within the next few months for review and for discussion. So I'd love to allow and provide some answers to any questions that the school committee has. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Perrella. Do any members have any questions? Mrs. Rizzo?
First, I want to apologize, Dr. Perella, for not coming to your workshop 2 weeks ago. I was having horrible internet issues. And even though you sent me a link, it still wouldn't let me get on. So I apologize. I was looking forward to it. And I just want to commend Jason and Asha and Blaine for all the work they've been doing throughout the summer. Asha, I'm so glad to see you. This is right up your alley, and you're shining, girl. I'm so proud of you. And it's such a great addition to have people like Blaine and Jason joining. So we are starting a subcommittee on equity and diversity. And so it'll be great to have an opportunity to sit down with all of you and help each other to see where we can make the best practices for our students everywhere. So I'm looking forward to every single minute of this journey.
Thank you, Mrs. Rizzo. Mr. D'Ambrosio?
I'd like to echo Ms. Rizzo's sentiments. Thank you all. I had the opportunity to get to know a few of you this summer, and the work you're doing it's incredible and it's tireless. I think that as we all know, these equity issues there are no short-term fixes. A commitment from the district is required in the long term and indefinitely. There's no set of guidelines or policy solutions that'll fix the majority of equity problems going into the future. We need to continuously keep an eye on these issues. So I'm excited to work with you all, as I'm sure all of my colleagues are, over the course of the next few years. As Ms. Rizzo mentioned, the new equity subcommittee and then the advisory board for the entire district would love to work with you all when we get those issues straightened out. So I'm sure my colleagues agree, but if there's any way that we could help, please reach out to us. We'd love to.
Thank you,
Just
Mr. D'Ambrosio.
I just want to say a few words.
Dr. Garcia?
Possible.
Actually, Dr. Garcia, sorry. Ms. Ty had her hand up.
All right, that's
We'll let the
fine.
committee finish and then we'll jump.
Yeah,
to you.
sure.
All right.
Carol, you're muted. Carol, unmute yourself.
I am perfectly happy to give way to Dr. Garcia because he always has great things to say. So I'll let him speak first.
I did not mean to, but I truly appreciate it. So I just want to thank Dr. Perala, Asha, Blaine, and Jason for presenting tonight. This team is certainly doing a solid job on issues of race and ethnicity, and equity across the board. I had the pleasure to review the plan that I have developed, and we talk about all kinds of potential strategies that we can implement to make sure that the wonderful job that this team has done at the high school can be translated and spread out to the entire district. So they have certainly very good ideas. They're very progressive leaders. They see things differently. And I'm very glad to see that Dr. Perala and Dr. Perala's leadership, has been built on some of the things we have done in the past. And I'll be there in my current position to support him and support other schools in the district, because equity and issues of race is certainly something that really I take very seriously, and we have a lot of work to do. And on racial disparity, on kids who are not doing well, families that need to be brought into our schools to make sure that we treat them equitably. This is a great work that they're doing. And when I read the plan and I saw the facets and the development that I have in place, it gives me a great joy to really work with this team, and wish them all the best. And I just want to make sure they know that I'll be there to support them, every step of the way. I have known John before he left Riviera, and I've seen the work he has been doing. He's very passionate. He's a very passionate leader. He takes issues of this nature very seriously, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Mrs. Ty, Ms. Ty.
Well, I really just want to echo what everyone has said before, but I think there is a real desire on the part of the school committee, and I'll speak for myself personally, but I hear it from everybody else, that we would like not to get reports every 6 months, but to get reports so that we can be able to participate if there is anything that we can do to help, and that we'll be able to follow up, because as Dr. Kelly noted in her opening day speech, as Mrs. Jesselman referred to, you know, this is one of the great missions of the Riviera Public Schools right now. And let us hope that the other one will fade with science, but this one will not fade. This one needs to be worked on and brought in, and all of the issues need to be addressed, not by some scientist in a lab, but otherwise. So please keep us informed periodically. Thank you. Now I'll mute.
Thank you, Ms. Ty. Do any other members have any questions or anything else to say?
Can I check in with Jason? I think I might have accidentally lowered his hand when I was trying to put down Anthony's because he had already spoken.
Okay. Jason, did you have?
It's okay.
Oh,
Yes, yes. I did want to say one last thing is that
Jason, you're freezing.
the floor. I did want to mention one last thing.
You might need to put it in the chat, Jason, the internet.
How about now?
Thank you, Jason. Sorry, we couldn't hear you. There was some internet connectivity
We just
issues.
wanted
Maybe
to
you can.
model real life for you.
I know. But again, I want to echo the sentiments of all my other colleagues and just applaud you on the great work that you're doing. And this is definitely something that, you know, has been a long time coming. And we're so proud that you guys started this earlier in the year, right at the start. And, you know, please keep us informed and involved in all that goes on. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Did anybody else have any questions or anything else to say? No. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kelly.
Okay, so
Thank you.
I am going to make you all attendees again. You're welcome to stay or not. It's the first day of school tomorrow, school night for all staff.
Right.
So I know if you're anything like I was on the first day of school every year, I would lie in bed sleepless for at least 7 hours. And I'm sure you want to go home and get ready for that. So thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Take care.
Thank you. Dr. Kelly will continue with the superintendent's report.
Yes, give me 1 second to.
Okay.
Did they all leave? Okay, they must have left of their own volition. Okay, so the next item on the superintendent's report is a reopening update. And it says on the agenda that I'm gonna give this report, but I'm actually gonna ask Dr. Garcia to do it. He has been doing all of the legwork of incorporating any changes that we've made over the last several weeks into our reopening plan. And it was last updated on August 31st, and we're getting ready to launch a newer update. And Doc will take us through what those changes are. Some of them, we had feedback from parents that it wasn't clear because the reopening plan focused on 3 different levels of remote, hybrid, or in-person instruction. It wasn't necessarily clear what we were doing. So that was one of the main changes we wanted to make. And then as additional information has been released from the state and the Department of Education, we've incorporated that as well. So I am going to make Dr. Garcia a co-host so that he can share his presentation or his screen that's going to show the changes to the reopening plan. Or Doc, I know you might not be on your work computer. Do you want me to share it and you can take us through?
Actually, hold on. Can you all see the screen? No?
No.
Oh. Okay, 1 second. Hmm. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yes, as good evening. I just want to, welcome everyone to this presentation, and also, first of all, I'd like to recognize the great work that the central office directors, principals, and teachers have done to ensure that we have a solid plan. First, as you all know, we plan for different types of contingencies, situations. We focus our work on 3 models, one being in-person learning, the second one being a hybrid model, and the third one, the remote learning. And the third one became the first one. So, teachers have done a lot of work, and the directors, the work that I have done, even parents, it's simply amazing. And we know all, we know the time that we are in. These are unprecedented times, are very difficult times. And the work focused technically on 6 areas of development: teaching and learning, student support, personal and staffing, special education, English language learners, facilities and operations, and transportation. So the first plan that we put out there, that it was a draft plan, and since then the plan has suffered some modifications. And along with the plan, we decided this time around to include an introduction to the plan that explains or delineates our work over these past 6 months, and then also it provides parents a little bit more personalized and brings a little bit more personal flavor to our plan. And you can all see it here. We basically, committee, talk to parents and make sure that we give them some assurance that we're here to work with them, to support them throughout these difficult times. So that's the cover letter. So the second, the plan itself, I'm going to go to the plan right now. So that's 1 second.
I know Doc's opening the plan. One of the things that you might have noticed in the opening letter that he had up is we have links right in that opening letter, which we think, and I want to thank Dr. Garcia for crafting that letter. It gives a little framing to the reopening plan. And the link to the reopening plan will live right in that letter going forward. But right now, we're still working on finalizing the updates, and and then the link will work to the new updated version.
Almost there. Okay. Can you see it?
No.
Oh. Can you all see it now?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, all right.
You may just need to scroll up to the beginning.
So the first page, that's the first update of the plan. We wanted to make sure that the community and parents and families in general know that this plan has been voted to begin the 2020-2021 school year in a remote format. The school committee has voted on it and is ready to go. That's the first a challenge that we have made. That was not part of the draft plan. And as you can see, the word draft has been removed from this plan. So that stays the same. The table of content is the same. These are all the participants, the team participants. There were no changes to the description of the teaching and learning across all three models. The three models, as you see in the document, there will be a mention of the three models because we need to have a plan ready just in case after tomorrow, the school committee decides that we have to revert to one of the plans. So those three models will be mentioned throughout the document. This is all the same. So here, we know that we're not going to be implementing the in-person learning. So we wanted to make sure that our parents, our communities, the student teachers, when they do read in-person learning, they may ask, okay, we're going remote. Why the word in-person learning model is here? So we want to make sure that we added that verbiage there. We will not be implementing in-person learning at this time for them not to confuse people, for them to read it and see that that's not going to happen this time around. That's all, no changes there. And then you have hybrid learning model. That's the same thing. We apply the same approach. It's mentioned in the document. We are not going to implement that model now. All the language stays the same. There's a clear definition of synchronous learning and asynchronous learning for parents to see the difference. That's all. We did not change that language, all the same. Then here is the current instructional learning model that we are going to follow, that Riviera is going to follow. And that's the model that has been voted by the school committee. So one of the changes that we made to the document is that, remote learning model incorporates both synchronous and asynchronous learning opportunities via a daily set schedule, which allows students to receive direct instruction and feedback from educators. This live work will be implemented by a synchronous support that can be accessed by students and family members at their own convenience time. So in other words, they can move at their own pace, their own time. So then there is a little also addition to this part. So the first sentence stays the same. Then there's an addition in a remote learning model. It's our priority to continue to build, promote, and maintain effective relationships between students and teachers, focusing on the school emotional well-being of our students. That's also a change. We slightly changed that part. And then here, that's where the big change came. We introduced a big change there because, as you all recall, during our in the draft model, we simply had some, model schedule, potential model schedule that a teacher, a school could embrace. This time around, actually, these are the actual schedules that you have in the plan. So, the verbiage says below is an example of what the elementary remote learning schedule will look like during remote learning. All elementary schools will have similar schedules, but may have variations due to particular staffing and student needs. Please contact your child's teacher or a school administrator with specific questions about your child's schedule. So here you have the schedule. For example, this is one sample of, sample elementary school remote learning schedule that you can see. As you can see, you go to the schedule, you will see that I have time schedule for everything. They have learning time, but they also have, time for to provide support for students. They have time for teachers to meet during PLG time. They have the whole group morning meetings. They have family, time for contacting and engaging families. So it's a very, very comprehensive schedule. And I have to give a lot of credit to the principals. We have worked very hard on this schedule. They really collaborate with each other through various Zoom meetings. We at the central office, provide them with support in terms of troubleshooting some situations. But the principals, kudos to all our principals. They are very hardworking leaders. And they have done an amazing job putting these schedules together. So then we have a sample middle school remote learning schedule. This schedule incorporates all 3 middle schools in the district. They also collaborate with each other. It's just an amazing group of leaders. Cohort of leaders. That's all I can say. And as you can see as well, here you'll have to, find time for a synchronous time work. You will see right in the morning, 60 minutes that teachers have. You will see time that they have for providing some support to our students during advisory, the support that so many of our children need right now. You will see the time that is dedicated to teaching and learning. It's they lunchtime. They from 2:05 to 2:40. You will see the work that continues there. It's just a schedule I'll put together. And then you have the high school schedule. The high school also, they were very savvy in terms of designing the schedule with time dedicated to support students in the morning. You have a synchronous independent work, peer collaboration. They have every scenario is contemplated on this schedule. And then they also provide some details, explanation, what periods 1 to 4 will consist of, the advisory. It's all the explanations there. They did also an amazing job.
And I'll also just add that these schedules have already been shared with families. Obviously, school starts tomorrow, so the middle school and high school students have had their schedules for quite some time. The elementary school students and their families just received their schedules between yesterday and today because the teachers had to work with specialists to create customized schedules for each student who has any additional services in their schedule. So. Yeah,
sure. Thank you for that addition. And here we made a slight change for families who have committed to remote learning for the year. We said that students will be engaged in full remote learning for the entire year, will be assigned to classes with Riviera Public Schools educators. They will engage in the same curriculum and learning opportunities as their peers, and all other modes of learning. Feedback regarding students' progress will be provided every 2 weeks. Student will be provided with a Chromebook and internet access as needed. So this is also to make sure that our families understand that We there for them, and will provide every opportunity to support them and support their children during this time, during this pandemic time. The rest of
And
the
I'm gonna add, sorry, Doc, I'm gonna add
Sure.
one more thing in there too.
yeah,
The draft plan we had put out, I just want to mention because a couple parents have asked about this. Mentioned a student learning platform that the state had told us they were going to make available to schools and districts. And we had a team of teachers that looked at the offerings that the state had made and felt that they were not acceptable because there was no live teacher support included with that. And so on the teacher's advice, we withdrew our participation in that student learning platform and instead assigned all students who are going to be learning remotely for the year to teachers who are going to teach them in a remote platform throughout the year. So these kids will have the exact same curriculum and instruction that all other Riviera Public School students will have, even if we eventually get to a hybrid or in-person model.
correct. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Kelly. And then this is the test remains. There's no change whatsoever, and obviously here also there's a little change. There's a change every time you see a yellow text. That means that the change has been introduced to the plan. It talks about school personnel, families, and students. That have been or will be trained to ensure that the safety protocols, technology, resource, and other things are properly implemented. And that's clear. You can read it. So here also we want to make sure that our technology department is up to date and is ready to support families and students when there is a concern regarding connectivity or maybe a Chromebook issue or maybe internet access and things like that. We have a student help desk that will be available to support families and students. That also is an addition to the plan. And as you all know, we are in the process of hiring our bilingual family liaisons. We are on the verge of having, we already hired 4, and we'll be hiring 2 more maybe tomorrow, after tomorrow. These are the names of those bilingual family liaisons, and their emails and their names and the school where they are. And these people, these family liaisons will play a critical role in making sure that our schools are connected to the families. There will be a support to all principals in the district because of their language component, understanding of the community, and the dynamics that we have in our school. They will be basically the face of the school. They will be building the bridge between our schools and the community. So they're wonderful people. I personally had the pleasure to meet with them. Very knowledgeable. Some of them actually speak 3 languages, others, potentially 4. So it's a very good cohort of people that we've been hiring, quality people, professional, I should say.
I'm going to move us along a little bit, Doc.
Yes.
Running up on time.
So here remains the same. There's no change. And then you will see in-person learning. We made also that observation that we will not be implementing that. You can see that. And then there's a slight change there that has to do with, that describes the remote learning and, the schedule, the IP meetings that will happen, the ways in which it will happen, and the support also, and, the service that will be provided to those students, to our, special education students. Then you have personal staffing and professional learning. Slight changes, not a lot of changes. Then there's a description of the remote, remote instruction, what's going to happen, the Zoom meetings, the PLG sessions. It's all well thought out. So, our parents and the public and teachers and students in general will have the opportunity to read these online when it's posted, probably tomorrow. So these are all the changes. And here we have made these changes. This has to do with safety in the building. So, that part that you see in yellow there, that's a little addition to the plan that came from the commissioner guidance. They want to make sure that kids are not, using the hand sanitizer in a proper way. They want to make sure that language is, it's reflects in our plan. So then we have the ventilation. This is the audits on the heat, ventilation, AC systems in the building. In all buildings have, you see that, there are some issues at Riviera High School, Garfield, and Beachmont buildings, but we are taking all the appropriate measures to mitigate some of those things that have emerged. And probably Dr. Kelly can also talk a little bit about it. That's the revised language that we have included in the plan.
Yeah, and I'll just say that, we drafted this out last week after we had some instruction from Dr. Golenbach and Dr. Kong during a professional development that we offered to teachers as part of our reopening professional development, and advice that we've had for several weeks now, which we've shared widely from the consultants who came in and did our HVAC inspections. We also had an article from Harvard that included a visit from Dr. Fauci and his recommendations around opening windows. And so we've worked really hard. And when I say we, that's the royal we. I should say that Kyle Svensson and his team have worked incredibly hard, nights, weekends, nonstop for the last several weeks to make sure that we had operable windows in every classroom in these buildings. And they've done an incredible job. We're very lucky or very fortunate to have such a diligent team to work with. And, we thank them tremendously for all of their hard work. But we've used all of the advice of all of the experts to guide our practice as we have all along. And that's no different as it relates to our HVAC systems. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kelly. So then you also see some revisions there, regarding the fans and other things. So the food service, there's no change whatsoever to that section. Then these are all changes that have been introduced to the plan because of the commissioner guidance that came out, and we got to make sure that these were reflected in our plan. So that's actually directly from the guidance that came from the Department of Education. Some of these things were included in our previous plan, but it's a little bit more tightened and more, detailed. Let's put it that way. There's the isolation room there. It's all changed. So then you have the transportation. So no change whatsoever to this section. We did not add anything to this section technically. It's all the same.
Yep.
And here you have the calendar. Still stays draft because, we may be in remote learning for 2-3 months, and then all of a sudden we have to change the calendar. I mean, so that's a reason why that word is still there. And that's the end of the document and all the revisions that we have introduced to the document. So tomorrow, these documents, I will clean it up. It will be posted. The English version will be posted. And I will submit this document to the Parent Information Center to be translated into Arabic, Spanish, and Portuguese. It will be posted accordingly. Once again, I just want to thank all the principals, directors, teachers, my central office colleagues and parents for such an amazing job. And it's really wonderful to see such a collaboration taking place throughout the district among all faculty members and among all leaders within the district. Thank you for your attention.
And thank you, Dr. Garcia, for all of your hard work on that.
Thank you.
Do any members have any questions for Dr. Garcia? No, thank you, Dr. Garcia, for all your hard work. Dr. Kelly, continue with the superintendent report.
Thank you. The next piece, Dr. Mokaba is actually going to deliver. So let me, I think I've already made you a co-host, right? So can you share? Yeah, okay. I might have to redo that. Okay. So Dr. Mokaba is just going to give us an update on the professional development program. I want to thank the committee for working with us to ensure that teachers had some time at the start of the school year to prepare for what is going to be an entirely different year. I did mention in my reopening comments to staff, this year is going to be different regardless of whether you're a brand new teacher or if you've been at it for 30 years. Things are still just going to be very, very different than what we're used to. So we wanted to take the time because the committee, gave the teachers the time, which is unprecedented, 9 days at the start of the school year for professional development. We wanted to definitely share what happened over that time so the committee can appreciate the investment that they made there. So Dr. Mokaba.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. So the first part that I'm going to talk about is the structure of the 9 days. So our staff, which included all teachers, paraprofessionals, and actually all of the school committee was also invited to participate in any of the sessions that they were able to arrange in their schedule. The staff participated in synchronous learning and asynchronous learning over the course of the 9 days. At the beginning of each week, all educators were given a live agenda with a menu of options to select from for the week. And at the end of each day, educators were asked to turn in their schedule for their day to their principal. Spread out throughout the 2 weeks were mandatory sessions that were both synchronous and asynchronous that all of our staff were required to participate in. These included Dr. Kelly's opening remarks, which all of you had seen, a training done by Dr. Mulligan on implicit bias. Dr. Mulligan is our new principal of Seacoast. There was the mandatory safety training that all staff had to participate in that reviewed safety procedures and protocols for engaging and returning to school and in the building with COVID. And finally, a session on COVID with Dr. Kong and Dr. Golenbach that Dr. Kelly had referenced previously. Additionally, there was also a resource library included for staff to refer to during their asynchronous learning time, and they were able to select topics or presentations or videos or readings that were in an area of their choice to further develop them in an area that they chose to focus on during that particular day.
And I'll just say, Dr. Mokaba, that the safety training is something that we will engage in with parents and students if the time comes that we're able to bring students back into buildings.
Thank you. So what the sessions look like. So over the first week, we offered more than 50 sessions for teachers at the elementary, middle, and secondary level participate in. The second week, there were over 80 sessions offered to staff. They were teacher-led. The majority of the sessions were teacher-led. There were also supplemental sessions offered by, there were DESE modules for remote learning. Outside providers presented, Riverside Trauma Center presented to our social workers, nurses, and other staff. Rebus and Associates, we were able to partner with them for a 6 hours of presenting and work for our paraprofessionals. And we did further work for our new teachers and other staff on some of our curriculum resources, such as Lexia, Achieve 3000, and Common Lit. A lot of these were chosen and selected based on teacher feedback at the conclusion of last year. One thing I want to say, and we've said it often, and it's definitely worth saying again, is that we're so grateful for the teacher leaders that we have in the district. We had so many people that were willing to step up and present to their colleagues. We had people that were willing to record themselves videotaping to share for their colleagues. And you know, the outpouring of people that were willing to step up and take a risk during this time and really help their colleagues get on the same page and help train their colleagues to endeavor in this work this year is great. Also to our curriculum directors and the principals who worked tirelessly to help develop this 9-day program so that we could work to meet our teachers and our paraprofessionals where they were and help support them starting this year. Some of the other topics, implicit bias and equity. We had several SEL topics, including a mindset of resilience and trauma-informed classrooms. One of the primary areas of focus was technology training. We had extensive training on Google Suites and other programs to support students learning in the hybrid or remote environment this year, and I'll show you those were definitely areas that we need to continue to focus on. So a significant amount of time was also developed to professional learning groups and job alike groups to support curriculum development, unit development, to support nurses and support staff in coming up with consistent expectations across all of our schools, and continue to set the groundwork for conversations that are going to happen throughout the course of this year. After each of the weeks, after the first week, we requested some feedback from staff and used that to inform the second week. As you can see, 44.5% of the staff felt that the Google sessions were the most useful that they participated in. PLG sessions were also considered to be valuable, as well as the COVID session with Dr. Kong and Dr. Golenblock. And this is just a general graphic representation of some of the highlights. Week 2, you can see that the focus shifted a little bit. As I had said, extensive time was dedicated to the PLG sessions. Most of that happened during the second week. Staff found that overwhelmingly valuable to help support them in their professional growth. And again, we fine-tuned and offered repeats of some of the sessions from the first week, and included things like Google Office Hours, where teachers could make appointments and work with a Google expert on our staff during this time.
And if I can pause you again there, Dr. Mopapa, for a minute. One of our main objectives in designing the professional development program that we've engaged in for the last couple of weeks is to model how we thought effective learning would look for students. So we structured the 2 weeks, as Dr. Mopapa mentioned, with a lot of choice, where teachers could select what things they needed to learn more about and then have programs set up to learn about those things. There was a combination of synchronous and asynchronous, as Dr. Garcia mentioned when he was reviewing the schedules. The students will have synchronous and asynchronous time in their schedules as well. And this piece about office hours came, toward the end of the day when teachers would have the choice to say, I want to learn more about that piece of Google Suite that I don't understand. and they could log on and talk to an expert and get that information. And if you go back to the reopening plan or look at the kids' schedules, you notice that the teachers all have office hours built into their schedules as well. And that's so that individual students can say, I need more help with that piece. Here's where I can go and get it, and it's all set up for me. So this was a piece of our modeling for teachers.
And finally, overall, after the conclusion of the 2 weeks, we heard from educators that they absolutely would like continued professional development, particularly in the area of Google and Google Meets and some of the other programs that they are going to be incorporating into their teaching this year. One of the things that we did note at the conclusion of last year that we heard from parents was that it was difficult for them with multiple logins and logging into different platforms. And we really wanted to take that to heart. And we looked at minimizing the number of programs that we included. This year, our goal is to focus on Google and use Google Meet. One of the things we noticed early on from the teachers was that right now Google Meet is missing some of the functionality, and staff are not as familiar with that. So we took the feedback from the staff, and we've extended given them a little bit more time to work with Zoom and become more comfortable with Google Meet. So ideally we can transition in January to potentially using just Google Meet as a single platform to teach virtually. Some of the other educators also identified the need to spend more time working with their colleagues in their departments to plan. As we all know, this year is looking incredibly difficult from the teacher perspective. They're a little bit overwhelmed, but we do have time. Teachers have PLG time. The elementary teachers will be planning at the end of the day across the district. So there's opportunities to leverage the collective expertise of teachers across the district to support their instruction and the development of rigorous, relevant units for our students for the year. One of the highlights was that there were several comments in the feedback for both weeks that included shout outs to to individual colleagues for their great presentations, which is always nice to see. And I know that the curriculum directors who were receiving this feedback, we're certainly going to pass that on to the teachers that did a great job. It's always nice to hear positive praise. And one other thing, I think it's important to note that we're all endeavoring on this new school year. We have done an extensive amount of work. It's one of those things that we are going to learn as we go. We've done an extensive amount of work this summer. We had to sort of condense our planning. It's something that would take 4 months. Typically, we would start scheduling schools early spring. We were unable to do, and our principals and our teacher teams worked tirelessly over the summer, and our assistant principals to help in a very short amount of time, a 6-week time rather than a multi-month time, to schedule buildings, provide and think about thoughtful PD to get teachers ready. And we understand that this year is starting off with a little bit of heightened anxiety, but we plan to continue to support teachers and offer professional development throughout the course of this year as we work through this together.
Thank you, Dr. Makaba. Do any of the members have any questions? Ms. Chai?
Just
You
an
have to
observation.
You're muted.
Whoops, sorry. Just an observation that I think it's usual that people appreciate learning from their own colleagues. And that was to notice that how many of them said that that was a wonderful thing to do. I admire people who will do that, because sometimes your peers are your most difficult critics. And so for people to have that kind of willingness to share and be vulnerable, I think they deserve a great praise for that. I'd like to know who they were.
Agreed.
I'll just say that in passing. But I really would.
Do any other members have any questions for Dr. McCarver? Mrs. Rizzo?
Just a comment. I had the opportunity to attend the doctor's presentation, and it was very educational. I think a lot of people got a lot of information out of it. They were both excellent. So I know I enjoyed it from the beach, but I did enjoy it. So thank you.
I agree. I thought that was wonderful.
Shall I proceed? No, I think Susan looks frozen. Susan might have lost her connection. Oh, here she comes, maybe. Susan, are you there?
Okay, I'm back. I don't know what happened. Just kicked me right off.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have questions? No? Okay. Dr. Kelly?
Sure.
With
So
those
next, we're going to return to Dr. Garcia. He's going to share some great information that we've been working on with the Department of Education to increase our ability to connect with families and for families to connect with us. Doc, do you have a PowerPoint for this one or no? I can't remember. Oh, you're muted. Doc, you're on mute.
Yeah, so I have a document I could share with the committee, but I could certainly speak about it without the document.
Okay.
Yeah. So the I don't know if you heard about the Lion Bridge. Lion Bridge is a company that is represented in 27 countries around the world, and right now they are heavy represented here in the U.S. And they provide interpretation services, language services for more than more than 350 languages, are available, to all companies, schools, and organizations, institutions, and so on and so forth. So they provide on-demand translation for all kinds of institutions. So the Department of Education, knowing that many school districts where we have a significant number of ESL students, foreign language students, and not only that, but students who are foreign but may have disability or may have a second language issue, cannot speak English. They are well aware of that, and they have partnered with this organization to support different districts, and Riviera is one of them. I am so glad and happy that we have a service that we are embarking on such a wonderful project, because these will solve many of our problems. Let's imagine, for example, that there is a language barrier between a teacher and a parent, or maybe there is a situation in school, in a classroom, that the teacher does not understand the parent very well, does not understand the student. All the teacher needs to do, or the principal needs to do, is to call a toll-free number, and then after calling that number, the caller will enter a PIN number. That PIN has been given to us. We have actually shared this information with the principals already. And after that PIN number is entered, the step 3 would be basically to select a language from the menu, and or you could select let's say you decide to select a Spanish or Portuguese or French or any other language, that that menu will give you a chance to do that, opportunity to do that. Then once you do that, technically there will be an interpreter that will be providing simultaneous translation. So you speak and the person will translate it right away. So in a district like Riviera, where we have so many, where the minority now is the majority, with so many, Spanish, Arabic, Portuguese speakers, this service comes handy, particularly in times like this. So I'm sure that they will help many of our schools, our principals, our teachers, and it's something that is really that will be helpful for our district. And I just want to thank Dr. Kelly for really, when this opportunity was presented, and she basically told me, you got to be on this. You gotta, work. Let's make you, a contact person for this, because this is something that I'm very passionate about. Making sure that our families are linguistically and culturally represented, and the support that is out there for them. And having this company on our side will be a add value to our district, to our parents, and to our students. So that's a line bridge, and it's a great service. I look forward to really working and supporting our teachers, and I look forward for our principals to take advantage of these resource, these resource.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Mrs. Rizzo, you have a question?
No, I just want to say school nurses have been using it since March, and they found it very useful, very easy to use. And in a world that, you could speak Portuguese, but there could be 5 different dialects to Portuguese. And they cover the whole gamut of languages. So I think it is going to be very useful to our families and to our educators. And I'm glad we'll be using this program. So thank you, Dr. Garcia, for heading it up, and Dr. Kelly for pushing for it.
Thank you, Mrs. Rizzo. Any other members?
Ms. Ty has a hand up.
Ms. Ty?
Yes, thank you to Dr. Kelly and Dr. Garcia on this. One of the complaints that I have heard most often is about the lack of translation. That, for example, in times of difficulty, the child would translate to the parent. And of course, that's not appropriate. Or somebody else who maybe a cafeteria person might be taken out of the cafeteria to translate. And then another complaint has been that, for example, in Arabic, there's a Moroccan Arabic, evidently, and then there's the Saudi Arabian Arabic. And I suppose it's much like the classical French and the Canadian French, very much the same, but could be some crucial differences. And so I was very glad to hear that they would be immediately online, able to translate whatever the needed language or dialect is suitable in this particular case. And I think that will make people feel so much more comfortable that they will be dealing with a professional in the services. And they will feel also that the confidentiality will be honored, and that they will not be open to just some random person translating for them. So I think it's a wonderful program. And just one final question, does it cost us anything? Now, I don't care if it does or not, because whatever it is, I'm just curious. Does it cost us anything?
So right now we'll be operating under a grant from the state that will cover the cost. We have a $15,000 allocation, which will go relatively quickly depending on the frequency and length of conversations. But the state has indicated that if they receive more CARES Act funding, if there's any additional package, they intend to reinvest in this. And their goal is to get us through the entire school year.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Right, great. Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Thank you, Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Ms. Ty. Mr. Ferrante? You're muted. Michael?
Gotcha. Thank you. How many languages does it interpret?
I believe it's over 250.
I think Josh
350.
said
That's how many we have
350.
in Riviera?
Huh?
I'm just making a joke. That's how many we have in Riviera, 250 languages?
No, I only speak 6 or 7.
Okay.
But we do have close to 60 different languages that are spoken in the community. So the great thing about Lions Bridge, as much as we have folks in the district who can translate for Spanish, Portuguese, and Arabic, as others have already mentioned, dialects matter. And we also have a number of other languages that we don't have capability within the school department to translate. And so Lion Bridge will give us that opportunity.
You think we'll get a grant every year for this program?
We'll see. I know that right now the state is kind of like piloting it. So we were able to get in on a pilot of the program, which is why the state is covering the cost. But I think it's something that they're looking at acquiring through a state contract that would give districts a more financially feasible opportunity to engage with the company.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrante. Any other questions? We'll return to the superintendent's report.
And I have one more piece. And Dr. Gallucci is actually going to present this piece, and it's about Title IX. We started training our administrators and are continuing to do training on new federal laws around Title IX, and Dr. Gallucci will share more information on that.
Hey, everyone. So on Wednesday, September 9th, all building-based administrators, as well as all central office members, engaged in a 2.5-hour to 3-hour training. I just want to take a quick second to thank all of the principals and assistant principals that attended. As Dr. Merkaba said earlier, they are in the midst of doing scheduling work that usually takes 4 months in a matter of weeks. And I'm sure it wasn't easy to lose those 3 hours, but I'm very appreciative for each and every member. We had full 100% attendance, and it's a testament to their continued dedication and ability to be flexible in even the most challenging of times. So I'm going to give everyone an overview of kind of what the purpose of the training was. There was a change in the law, as we had discussed at one of our previous school committee meetings. The training was provided by Jennifer King, who is from Valerio Dominello and Hillman. As I said, all administrators and central office members attended. The two objectives of the training were to gain an overview of Title IX application in schools and the workplace, and to gain a working knowledge of the district's policies and procedures relevant to sexual harassment in Title IX. And I'm going to pause there because one of the things that we kept on the forefront of our mind throughout this training and the decision-making process is that we wanted to do as much as we could to ensure that victims of sexual harassment felt empowered to come forward and to not have the change in the law restrict those complaints. And so anywhere we could, and I'll get to this in the forthcoming slides, we really tried to err on the side of ensuring and empowering victims to come forward. Things like the burden of proof and the threshold in which the district uses, providing information so victims have clarity on what the process is all about, and looking for lines of communication to ensure that everybody has that information so that if they did need to come forward, they felt comfortable and confident to do so. So one of the first things we had to do was establish who the three participants would be in an investigation. I would serve as the Title IX coordinator and the complaint manager. It's one and the same. I would hold both of those titles and kind of coordinate the whole investigation process. We designated our assistant principal to be the primary investigator in terms of collecting facts, interviewing pertinent people, and conducting a thorough and bias-free investigation. The principal would serve as the decision maker, and kind of a fourth component to this is we would of course have an appeals process, and Dr. Kelly would oversee the appeals process. So participants for the training were provided with information as to how to conduct an investigation without bias. They were presented with subsequent hypothetical scenarios where they could apply this knowledge, and the instructor would kind of jump in with feedback once we went through each scenario.
And one piece I'll add here, Dr. Belushi, is that
Yeah.
if there are questions about comfort in somebody of a particular gender about an issue, we can make accommodations and have alternates take roles that the person coming to the complaint feels more comfortable.
And I just wanted to give a brief summary of the major changes. We discussed this a little bit, but I kind of captured them in this slide. So the formal training is one major change that everybody has to undergo, this formal training that we attended on September 9th. The kind of 6 big changes, if you will. A school district has to respond when the district has actual notice of sexual harassment, when an allegation is made known to any employee. So once any employee has knowledge of an allegation, they can come forward to start this process. As I kind of previously, the new regulations require the involvement of 3 different individuals. They've been identified as me, as the assistant principal, and the principal. The new regulations also require that the alleged harasser receive written notice of the allegations before an investigatory interview. School districts must also notify applicants for employment, parents and guardians of students, and unions of Title IX coordinators' contact information that is readily available on our website in our plan book. In our handbook for everyone to access. One kind of major change to the sexual harassment definition is that sexual harassment is now defined as unwelcome conduct that is severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive, that it denies educational access. The big change there is that the previous definition used or instead of and. And so now the definition of sexual harassment asks for these 3 different categories to be satisfied. Whereas in the past, it could be one of the 3. And then this is where we had some clout in terms of the decision-making process. A school district may use a preponderance of evidence as our standard, which is a lower threshold, or clear and convincing standard, which is a higher threshold. And we, of course, chose the lower threshold of a preponderance of evidence in making determinations. And just kind of our work in following up to revisit kind of my initial point of ensuring that victims feel comfortable and confident, and that they are armed with knowledge that allow them to come forward. This is some of my follow-up work with Ms. King. So we had the idea to develop a clear information sheet for current RPS staff members and new hires to reference if they are indeed in need of a formal complaint process. Part of what could be someone's fear is the unknown. What is the process like? What's going to be required of me? Who can I contact? I think people would feel a little more confident if they had all the information captured in a space that they could reference and be confident to kind of move forward. So we want to ensure that there's a thorough understanding of the complaint procedure, identify contacts that victims can reach out to if they want to initiate the process, and establish clarity in terms of what the process entails, as well as a trust factor between them and the district to empower those staff members to come forward if they so choose. On the administrative end, we are going to establish a flow chart for all participants in the complaint process, which would be primarily assistant principals and principals, to ensure consistency and equity across the district, so they know exactly how the investigation flows. As I had mentioned, we're going to employ the preponderance of evidence standard as a lower threshold for making determination, as opposed to clear and convincing standard, which is a higher threshold. And then finally, along the lines of the previous note, we're going to generate sample questions that ensure a thorough, bias-free, and conflict-free investigation. Sitting with someone, asking them questions, making sure they feel comfortable in that process. And those were the major updates that I wanted to make everyone aware of.
And Dr. Galucci, can I ask you to just give a brief definition of Title IX for those at home who might not know what we're talking about when we say Title IX?
Sure. I don't have the exact definition in front of me.
Okay.
But basically, Title IX prohibits sex discrimination in programs and activities of all educational institutions, including school-sponsored activities or travel that may occur away from school, and so long as the school receives federal financial assistance, which we obviously do. So we fall under that category.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Galucci. Do any members have any questions for Dr. Galucci? Ms. Dye?
Yes. Rich, I recall that in the past, and my question is just, is this still a procedure that is intact? Mm-hmm. Do we give companies that might be doing work within our schools notification of our policies so that any of the workers that come into the school, for example, to fix the plumbing or to do whatever they might be doing inside the school, that they have to sign off that their employees know that there is a policy that we have and what our policies are, and that they will be held accountable if they do not abide by them? Do we do that?
So Ms. Ty, I think that's one of my next steps with Ms. King, because the information is available, but I think we now need to determine how we communicate that and give it to people that are working in the school, whether or not, if availability is not enough, I guess is what I'm saying. If on top of
it isn't enough.
Right, so
we need to be proactive in this.
So we'll be communicating our policy out to those vendors and anyone else that interacts.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chai. Any other members? No other members. And Dr. Kelly, back to you to conclude. That concludes the superintendent's report.
That does conclude the superintendent's report. The one final note that I'll add that's not on the agenda is that we did submit the paperwork to the MSBA and anticipate that we'll be at their October 9th meeting to discuss final steps in the procurement of an owner's project manager for the new high school project. So we'll have an update at the October meeting for that.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Okay, next up on the agenda, student representative report. We do not have a student representative as of yet. Next is the vote required for the consent calendar. We'll need a roll call for that.
Motion to accept the consent calendar.
Second.
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sinella,
You're muted, Fred.
Yes.
Ms. Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Arrigo.
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda are subcommittee reports. And the first one is the superintendent evaluation. Normally the chair, which would be Mayor Arrigo, would report out on this. He asked if I would do that for him. He's having some audio problems. So the committee met on August 26th for the superintendent's end cycle summative evaluation. And I'm just going to report out on the ratings that she received. her progress towards her goals, professional practice goal, teaching all students. Summative rating was she has met that goal. Student learning goal, building community. She has also met that goal. And the third goal, district improvement goal, assessment of and for student learning. We're happy to announce that Dr. Kelly has also met that goal. The next rating was the standards. Standard 1 is instructional leadership. The summative rating for that overall rating was exemplary. Standard 2, management and operations. The overall rating was proficient. Standard 3, family and community engagement, also proficient. Standard 4, professional culture, also proficient. The overall summative performance rating in all the standards is proficient. The evaluator comments that we compiled from the school committees and cycle evaluations. We have a brief summary for that. So I'll read that to you also. Dr. Kelly has proven her ability to be a strong leader in the most difficult times. Her understanding of the challenges facing our students, her educational vision, and strong values all combine to situate our students very well for future success. The closure of Riviera's physical schools in mid-March with little notice and the abrupt switch to remote learning presented major challenges. Dr. Kelly continues to work with school administrators, teachers, staff, and parents to ensure that our students have the ability and resources to continue their education in a remote or hybrid model. Dr. Kelly continues to model her high standards, and she's a pleasure to work with. Thank you, Dr. Kelly, for all your great work this year. We really appreciate everything you've done for us and for the students and parents in our city.
Well, thank you all very
Any
much
members?
for the kind words. As always, it's no one person who can make these things happen. Any success I have is built on the shoulders of everybody that I work with. So thank you to the teachers and the custodians and the secretaries and the administrators and the cafeteria workers and the school committee and all of the parents who contribute to our work all the time and everybody else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Any members? Nope, we said it all. Oh, Ms. Ty?
Well, just to point out that it's the leadership at the top that causes everyone else to rise above the standards that might be simply average, and that causes people to go beyond and to be exemplary. And I think that's what we have in the school system. Thank you, Dr. Kelly.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, KBA school family relation goals.
And Stacy, do you want me to share the screen, or do you want me to pull up the ones that you sent earlier and share them?
I mean, you can. I'm just going to report from the subcommittee.
Okay.
And so the subcommittee met on August 27th to review the school family relation engagement policy. And at that point, we have recommended out that we adopt this new policy for KBA. So I make a motion to accept the recommendation.
Second emotion.
Stacy, I'd like to make a substitute motion. I'd like to make a substitute motion to approve the family engagement policy as it was written by the Family Engagement Committee as a standalone document to be added to our school family relation policy, KBA.
Second.
Roll call on.
Well, I'd like to speak on it, but
Do we need a roll call on the first motion first?
No,
No.
the substitute
Just the
motion
substitute.
takes
On the
precedence.
substitute.
Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo,
No.
Excuse
Mr.
me,
Dam-
point of information.
Yes, Mrs. Sinella.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor that a substitute motion was added. Motion was made and seconded. It's open for discussion.
Right.
So I thought someone wanted to speak on it and that you went right to a vote. I'm sorry if I misunderstood.
Sorry, did someone want to speak on it?
Carol did.
Oh,
Yeah,
Carol.
I'll simply repeat what I said when we had the meeting, that I know that there was a committee composed of a number of people from our community, a number of people from the members of our school department who worked on it. I know they took a long time. Somebody said 2 years. I looked at it. I thought it was very well written, and it seemed to address every concern that I have heard. And I just think that that should be a policy by itself. I think it's a point of honor and of respect that when people work very hard on a policy, that it should be recognized that they have and that we should adopt it. I do appreciate how much work Mrs. Rizzo did. She took everything and tried to put it in. I shouldn't say tried to put it in. She incorporated all of much of the wording and certainly all of the intention. My view is that when people work on a document for 2 years, it's disrespectful not to put that to a vote up or down. And that's why I support it.
Mr. Ferranti?
Susan, a quick question. I know we're
Yes.
voting on the parent engagement letter, that the draft that Mrs. Rizzo, are we voting on that secondly, or is that already going to be incorporated, or that's going to be off the record? Is it going to be voted?
No.
Nope.
No.
So it's just the
If the
parent.
if the substitute motion passes, Michael, it's over.
Yes, if the substitute motion is voted down, then we vote on the original motion.
Correct.
So right now we're voting on the original one.
On
No.
the substitute.
No, a substitute always precedes.
Okay.
We'll vote on the substitute one. Any other, Mrs. Rizzo?
So I just want to go back to some of the comments that Carol had made. And she discussed about how it being so disrespectful.
I'm
and
sorry,
I
didn't hear
know you had said it was disrespectful not to take on that policy of the work that they have done. And whether or not this started 2 years ago or not, it was never brought up to us until November that this was in the process. Whereas I then asked to be part of it, seeing that it is a school committee policy. It is also, we as a school committee or as a policy subcommittee has never been asked to attend. I personally asked to attend where it is one of our policies to be, to take part in it. So in no way was I trying to be disrespectful.
Oh,
This was a group of people, Carol, that formed their committee. We did not include all families throughout the city. I appreciate the work that they did. I incorporated 90% of what they had. Maybe it wasn't word for word, but I incorporated it so I could put it under how ESSA has kind of formulated it. So yes, they might have worked hard. I don't need kudos for doing a job that I was appointed to do, but at no time at all was I ever disrespectful to that group.
I
So
didn't say that
resent
you
it.
were. I said, it seems.
You said it was disrespectful to ignore it.
It is. That's my belief. I didn't say you were. I see, and I'll just repeat what I said at the
I
meeting,
know.
that I see this policy being attached to the KBA or whatever the letters are on it. And if it needs further discussion, then everybody can get together and do that. I don't think that's necessary, but if somebody else does, that's fine. And to include everybody in on it, from both the school committee policy and the group policy that was presented to us by Dr. Garcia. I just think that that addresses every part of the issue, makes many more people participate in the philosophy of the Riviera Public Schools.
Do any
Madam Chair,
other
lady?
members want to speak? Right, yes, Mr. Sinella?
I'm a little confused here. A committee of parents was formed to come up with guidelines. So what I'm understanding here now is that we are to accept as gospel what they have written without any oversight, so that henceforth, any group that comes up with whatever's designed, that we accept as gospel without tweaking it or without questioning it?
No, Mr. Sinella, it's a working document. And it will be added to KBA.
And it
Just
was,
as we said at our policy
it was
meeting.
presented to us with having had the participation of people from the school department and particularly Dr. Garcia.
Was it understood that it would be given as written and we weren't to look at it? I mean, we weren't to interpret or to guide it or anything of that nature? I mean,
Well,
I'm
I think-
missing something here. The
Well,
substitute
we did
motion
review
wants
it.
it.
Oh, sorry, go ahead,
we
Mr.
went over.
Sinella, sorry.
No. I'm trying to evaluate the role of the school committee that should be taking place here, not just with this document, but whatever's submitted to us. I'm lost here.
Mr. D'Ambrosio?
Thank you. Just to clarify, our voting on the substitute motion is a de facto endorsement or rejection of the document as it was originally written. That is our role in the input process. If you believe that that role should go, further in actually editing the document as Ms. Rizzo has proposed, vote against the substitute motion. But voting for or against the substitute motion is the school committee exerting influence on the process. Just to clarify, that's what we're doing here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members have any questions?
I'll move the question, please.
So we're voting on the substitute
Mr.
motion.
Ferrand?
That's the rule.
Correct.
That's Robert's Rules of Order.
Okay, that's fine.
It terminates the discussion.
Right, okay. You do roll call.
Okay, no more questions, roll call?
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo,
No.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti,
No.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sinella,
No.
Ms. Ty,
Yes,
Mayor Arrigo.
Yes.
Okay, substitute motion was approved. Next on the agenda item is EBCFA interim face covering policy. Mrs. Rizzo?
Okay. Am I on mute?
No.
So I thank everyone. Last month, we had a few interim policies that came up. This one was on face coverings. And I'm just trying to pull it. Okay. So at the August 27th meeting, I asked also if we could, we've adopted the policy, but I wanted to be able to amend it a little, following some guidance from the health professionals that states the following type of mask face coverings are acceptable to wear at school: blue disposable surgical mask, fabric mask, preferably at least 2 layers, face shields, along with the surgical or fabric mask under it. And so we also said the following types of masks, face coverings, are not acceptable to wear at school: masks with vents, neck gaiters, plastic face shields alone without a fabric or surgical mask. And the policy subcommittee is recommending that these words be amended to fit into the policy itself. So moved.
Second.
Roll call of the members.
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sinella,
Yes.
Ms. Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Arrigo.
Yes.
Okay, policy approved. Moving on. Next agenda item is old business.
Excuse me,
Seeing none. Oh,
I'm
yes,
asking for a
Ms. Rizzo.
personal point of privilege, please.
Yes, Mrs. Rizzo.
So at this time, I will be taking my name out as chair of the policy subcommittee.
Okay.
Or off the committee.
Okay, next agenda item is new business, paraprofessional return to work MOA.
Roll call.
May I speak on this for just a moment, Mrs. Gravellisi?
Yes.
So I just want to thank the group that we've been working with the American Federation of Teachers, in particular the Riviera Federation of Paraprofessionals, who fall under that state and national unit, for the incredible work that they've done. They've been very collaborative with the central office and administration in trying to navigate these very difficult times. And when we talked about the need to have a memorandum of agreement, we were able to do so swiftly and quickly, mainly because of the collaboration and cooperation that the paraprofessionals have shown us. In a very short amount of time, they have basically adopted the memorandum of agreement that the teachers had agreed to a few weeks ago. And so the parameters are generally the same. They're looking at the same number of days in the school year as everybody else is. They're going to work 3 days from their classroom and 2 days from home. They'll work 2 days from the classroom on weeks that are less than a full week, so 4 or fewer days. They understand that if we can make COVID testing available, they'll participate in that. They're working with us. The statement around ventilation was that the district will provide ongoing and reasonable assurance of adequate ventilation in the Beachmont, Garfield, and high school prior to a transition to the hybrid model. And will continue ongoing negotiations regarding, but not limited to, educator evaluation, which would include paraprofessional evaluations, scheduling in the hybrid model, and childcare. So again, I want to thank Susan Buckley and the other paraprofessionals who worked with us. Their representative from the Massachusetts AFT, who really helped us get through a lot of this, and all of the paraprofessionals in general have just been incredibly collaborative and cooperative, and really took to heart the spirit of we're in this together, and working together we can make this be successful. So a thank you to them.
Thank you, Dr.
applaud them.
Kelly. Okay, we have a roll call.
Mrs. Bronston,
Somebody make a motion. Sorry, I might have missed that.
Oh, did someone make the motion? I thought they did.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to accept the memorandum of agreement for AFT, Paraprofessional Union.
Second.
Mrs.
Roll
Bronston,
call.
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti. Mr. Ferranti, you're muted.
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sinella,
Yes.
Ms. Ty,
Yes.
Did Mayor Arrigo answer?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next agenda item, school committee interests. Any members have anything interesting they'd like to speak about? Mrs. Rizzo?
Just some information. There will be another charting of the workshop for new school committee members that need to be taken by the end of the school year. Also, any veterans are always welcome to attend, and it's very informational, very educational, and keeps us at the forefront of what our jobs are. It is at the end of September. I don't have the dates in front of me, but I will email them out to each of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members? Okay, next agenda
Anthony,
item.
Susan, Anthony's got a question.
Oh,
Not
sorry,
a
Anthony.
question. Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on that. Those seminars are actually very helpful. Mr. Rizzo's completely correct. I did a few of them last month to fulfill the requirements for new members, and there's a surprising amount of useful material that's presented in a digestible way. So I second that recommendation strongly.
Thank you, Mr. Ambrosio. Any other members? No. Next, we have motions, the encumbrances, Mrs. Rizzo.
I had to scan so I can read.
And I can just offer very quickly while Mrs. Rizzo gets ready that this encumbrance and subsequent motion to pay the.
Please mute.
Sorry, I thought I did.
Sorry. So the motions before you, first to encumber and then to pay the invoice are for the ongoing legal work that the Hill International, who was our owner's project manager on the Hill School building, has been doing as part of the litigation that is ongoing with the construction company that oversaw the building of the Hill School. And so this is their January invoices, sorry, their July invoices, which were approved by the Hill School Building Committee at a meeting yesterday.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Mrs. Rizzo?
I apologize. I can't find the verbiage for the encumbrances.
I can.
Would you like one of us to read it for you?
Sure, if you have it in front of you.
Susan, I can read it.
Okay.
Is a motion to encumber $1,092.50 for invoice number 66 to the Hill International for owner project manager services on the Staff Sergeant James J. Hill School for the period of July 1st to July 31st of 2020.
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Roll call?
I think this can be an all in favor because it's 1,000.
Oh, it's under 1,000.
It's under 15. All in favor?
All opposed?
Aye.
Everybody actually has to say something so that we can.
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
And the second is a motion to approve the payment of invoice number 66 in the amount of $1,092.50 to Hill International for owner's project management services on the Staff Sergeant James J. Hill School for the period of July 1 through July 31st, 2020.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
All
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Okay, and that concludes the regular agenda calendar. We'll make a motion to adjourn and go into executive session.
Second.
And that is without the intent to return to open session, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Correct, without the intent to return.
Is there another link, Diane?
Roll call.
So one more thing on that, I think, Susan, we want to mention that this is for reason number 3, which has to do with contract negotiations.
Thank you. Roll call?
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sinella,
Yes,
Ms. Ty. Ms. Ty, you're muted.
Yes, how did I get muted?
Mayor Arrigo.
Yes.
Is there a
Had to be
link?
Diane.
No.
Yeah, why don't we agree to take a 10-minute break? And I will send a new link to everybody.
Okay. Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.